Hey friends, welcome back to Crafter Support. My name is Andrea, and today I'm going to share with you how to use the envelope punch board to make a file folder card. So I am using the Regals collection from Stampin' Up. The designer series paper right here on the upper right is from the Regals collection, and it's just 6x6 paper. You can do so much with the 6x6 paper packs. So if you don't have a lot of storage for paper and you just want nice design paper, the 6x6 packs are perfect. So what I'm doing is just picking out what designs I want for the card that I'm going to share with you guys. So I decided to use the Brights collection, which is the exact same thing as the Regals collection. It's just all the different colors in the Brights collection. So before we got started with the video, I did take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I turned it on the 11-inch side and I trimmed it at 5.5. So basically I cut it in half on the long side. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys need a video on that, I can do that. So the paper that I have right here is 8.5 by 5.5. And we need to do some cutting. So this is the Stampin' Up trimmer. And what we're going to do is trim 3/4 of an inch off. So we're going to line it up on the 3/4 inch line and we're going to cut. So this trimmer has a scoring tool and a cutting tool attached to it, so you can use either or. So we're just going to cut with the cutting tool, obviously, and then we're going to move it over to 4 1/4 and we're going to score it. So all scoring is doing is it's breaking down the paper a little bit so that way there you can fold it nicely and get a good straight line. So now that we have our piece cut at the correct size, we're going to move on to the designer series paper that we need to cut. So if you see here, we have front panels, we have an inside panel, and I'm just measuring it here. And our front panel is going to be 2 3/4 by 5 1/4 because I'm giving myself the 1/4 of an inch on either side. So that's what we're going to cut. We're going to cut the first piece at 2 3/4 and then trim it down to 5 1/4. And that's just kind of like my standard way of doing things, is I like to give myself a 1/4 of an inch around my design. So that piece is cut, and now we need to cut a piece for the inside panel, and that's this piece right here. So we are going to cut a piece at 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. That will be the height that we need. So I'm just using another piece from that color family and I'm cutting it down. It's hard to see, but there's little tiny circles. They look like bubbles and they're really cute. So we'll cut that piece down, and then later on we'll need a scrap at 2.5 by 1 inches, but I actually would want to change that. I showed the card to my daughter and I was like, what would you change? And she just said, you know, a color in the background, which I'll show you at the end, but I totally agreed with her. Okay, so we do not need a white panel for the inside of this card because I end up using white as the background. I don't know why I was worried about measuring this. It doesn't really make sense, but I did. So if you wanted to add a white panel on the inside, say you were using a color like I did with the purple one, you could add a white panel so it was easier to stamp on the inside or write on so that you could see it. So that piece I'm just trimming down to the same size, which is the 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. And we don't need that. Okay, so now we're jumping into the envelope punch board. How we're going to score this, how we're going to punch this, is we're going to line up our first punch at the 3-inch mark, and we're just going to punch down. Then we're going to slide it over to the absolute edge of the board, and we're going to punch again. Then we're going to flip our card, and we're going to do the same cuts after we rotate it. So we have to flip it upside down and then flip it around so that the edges are on the opposite side that we're cutting. And we're just doing the same cut 3 inches and then going to the edge of the board. So that's all the scrap you get from that. And now we need to cut off those extra pieces. So I think I do round the corners here. So if you're unfamiliar with this punch board, there's a corner rounder in the top. So you just slide your edges in. And after I did this, I was like, I'm going to be cutting that off and have to redo it again. But I thought just leave it in the video so you guys see where the the corner rounder is. Okay, so now that we're lining this up, we need to line up into that little gully strip and cut away from that tab. Does that make sense? And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to line it up in the gully, and then we're just going to trim it right off. So those are the two little pieces. We're going to do the same thing here, line it up so you can see the cutting track that's under there, and drop your blade into it, and then just push it away from the tab. I'm lifting here and I'm going to the end, and I'm going to trim off the little end piece as well. Super easy. You can make a bunch of these cards, and you can make them so festive, and there's like a ton of different things. I can't wait till Christmas, because, and actually Halloween too, because Halloween I've made some really cute ones for that as well. But I just thought this was a cute, simple way to show you guys, and then you can just like let your imagination go wild with whatever you want to do with it. And here I'm just rounding the corners that I actually needed to round, and then we can start folding and placing our designer series paper. So if you guys are following me today, I know this video is going up, I think, a day later than normal, but today, Saturday, the 25th of May, I'm going to be having a video on our Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, I will put a link to that. I have two Facebook groups. I have the Crafter Support, and I have my Stamp It Up group. So I'll have both of those below. If you're not a member of one or the other, or both, we'd love to have you join us. The Stampin' Up group, however, is like a selling group. Like it's for like selling Stampin' Up product, just so you guys know that. All right, so now I just rounded the corners of one corner of each of my panels, and that was to match up with the corner that I had already rounded. You just need to make sure that your design is going the correct way whenever you round the corners, so that way there it's not the wrong corner that you're rounding, if that makes sense. All right, so we're going to put our inside panel on, and I do give myself a little bit of a white border. I just think that looks best. And then we can do the front again, lining up that rounded corner. In the Stampin' seal, like I used to use like a lot of it like all the way down the sides, and I realized you don't have to use that much, just because this Stampin' seal, it's basically double-sided sticky tape, is so strong. I haven't had any issues with anything coming off by just putting it in the corners, and it works really well. So now it's just a matter of decorating the front. So on this one I used purple ribbon, and it's just ribbon I got, I think, at the Dollar Tree, because I don't think I have any of the Stampin' Up ribbon from the past. I gave a lot of that, I donated, so I just used ones that I already had. And so here I'm taking out the Merriest Trees stamp set, and I'm pulling one of the stamps, and it says to you and yours. And then I'm using a stamp set that I got at the Dollar Tree, and it says, I think it says like thank you or thanks. It's a little hard to see. I think it says thanks. It says thankful. That's what it says. And later on I use that same stamp set to pull out the larger thank you to stamp another image that I end up using. So from this point on, you guys can decorate these however you like, as much as you want. You can put on different ephemera, you can just stamp on it, you can add layers on it, you can add pockets to it. Like there's so many things you can do with this design, but like I said, I just wanted to keep it simple so you could get the basics of how you do it, and then you guys can use your like creativity to do whatever you want with them. So here I'm just stamping the thankful in Granny Apple Green, and then I am doing the Merriest Trees to you and yours, and I'm just using my grid mat. You guys have seen me do this before. I use my grid mat to line up my stamp, and then I put my stamping block straight down on it so I can get it as straight as possible on my stamping block. because sometimes, like especially the cheaper stamps, they'll wiggle a little bit, and when you press down, like they won't be straight whenever you put them down. The Stampin' Up ones, the one I'm using now, is pretty like sturdy, but the Thankful one, you can tell it was kind of wobbly because it is a less quality stamp. But it still worked, right? So I'm not bashing it at all, because I actually like some of the stamp sets that I found there, and they have things that Stampin' Up doesn't have. So if you guys have been around for a while, you know that I like to use brand for brand, but when it comes to stamps, I'm not a stamping snob for that. I will use any type of stamp as long as it gives a clear image. I don't mind using any brand of stamps. I do mind using cardstock that isn't good. And I think Stampin' Up ink is one of the best in the market, if not the best. I haven't found one that I'm like, oh, I'd rather use this than Stampin' Up. So that's just my honest thought, and I've had that long before I became a demonstrator. So here I'm just taking some twine and I'm just rolling it in like 3 different sizes. So I made one small loop, one medium loop, and then a large loop. And now all I need to do is put a little piece of adhesive down, and I'm going to make sure that all of those pieces of linen thread are pressed down and in the stickiness. And then I'm going to cut out a piece, and here's where I wish I would have done it differently. I'm going to cut out a piece of paper, white paper, that is, what did I say it is? It is 2.5 by 1 inches, and you'll see me cut that here in a second. And I wish I would have done a background of the granny apple green first and then put the white image on it. Just because once you see it, you'll like, because as soon as I finished it and I was like, oh, it's really cute. And then I was like, oh, I should have done something a little different with the sentiment. And then I showed it to my daughter and she totally had the same thought I did. And I was like, absolutely, that's what I should have done. So here you could cut out a piece of coordinating granny apple green cardstock to make this rectangle rather than just doing it in the white. So I'm going to cut it at 1 inch. And then I'm going to trim it at 2.5 inches. And then I would cut another piece of white that's just big enough for the stamp. Then I would put layer that onto the card, if that makes sense. So here I'm just pressing it down. And again, this is from the Dollar Tree stamp set. It is a little like, it almost looks distressed, and maybe that's what they meant to do, is make it look distressed. I don't think it is, but that's just how the stamps come out for the Dollar Tree sets that I've found. They all come out looking a little distressed. And then I just rounded the corners, and I'm going to use Stampin' Dimensionals to pop it out from the linen thread. So I like the design itself of this card. I like the way it turned out. I just wish I would have put a granny apple green layer behind this sentiment and made the white a little bit smaller. So now we're just going to press our little ends down and layer it just like this. And it was so simple and easy to make. So guys, if you have any questions on this, please reach out and ask. I hope you can join us tonight at 6. And thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.